Hi, this is Abul Hussain, and welcome to another episode of the SMMA Mastermind podcast, where we talk about how you can start or scale your digital marketing agency. Now, if you are watching this episode outside of our Facebook group, make sure to find the link above or below this video or go to smmamastermind.com, especially if you are in the agency space. Now, with that out of the way, I have a very special guest joining me from Texas, all the way in the Lone Star State. His name is Jim Traister, and he is the co-owner of the Digital Navigator. We are going to talk about a lot of things, primarily his journey and some tips that you can learn from a veteran in how you can grow your agency, because he has grown his agency by 625% in the last month during the pandemic. With that, Jim, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Abul. I just want to say thanks to you again for reaching out. I really appreciate the way you reached out as well, too. I get hit up many times on LinkedIn to do this or that. And the way you've provided so much value up front without asking anything from me, I really appreciate that. Also, I'd like to congratulate you on all the content you have out there. I did a quick review. I shouldn't say quick review, several hours of review of your previous podcast. And for the number of days that you've been putting podcasts out there, it's just amazing, the content, and so valuable, as I was sharing with you before our call. Pretty impressed.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the kind words. This is something, actually, I recorded my first ever podcast on the 1st of June. So it was actually going into lockdown as well. And I think, we probably both have stories of growth, whether it's business or personal. Yeah. But for the people who are watching this, who don't know you, who don't know your backstory, how about a little bit of an introduction?
You got it. So I come from 16 years in the corporate world, mostly in hospitality business, so like restaurant business, primarily just worked my way up, everything from dishwasher all the ways up to training positions. I landed in Texas because I worked in the national finance position at one time. And lo and behold, I decided to go for my retiree dream early in life, and decided to be a teacher because that's what I want to do when I retired. Well, that's around 2008 or 2009. Lo and behold, in my classroom, and I'm leading to how did I end up in the digital marketing world? I had two rules in my classroom. One rule is never use your cell phone in my class when I'm lecturing. The other one is don't be late. So one day I had a student sitting up front. Her name was Sarah. Using her phone. I look at Sarah, who's an A student. I said, Sarah, what's the deal with the phone? She says, what, Mr. Traister? My last name. I said, you're texting. She says, I'm not texting. I said, what are you? And so I'm like, I had some language going through my head I won't use on your podcast. And I said, what are you doing? She says she's tweeting. So I thought, okay, I'm going to be the cool teacher, go home and find out what is tweeting about. I got a Twitter account, a Facebook account. This is around 2009, 2010.
Wow.
The lesson out of that is don't be the 40-year-old adult and try to be cool in the classroom. That was the lesson. So lo and behold, fast forward, I was also studying to be a sommelier at that time. 𝗗𝗵𝗏𝗄 had a wine library. I think that was the name of his podcast back then. So I was trying to learn as much about wine. And he started talking about social media. Because of his background in retail and my background in restaurants, it's like I connected the dots with what social media was. I started dialoguing back with him around 2010, 2011, and the Twitter universe was so small, I could reach out to him and ask questions. And the first lesson I'd like to share with people, because I know you're focused on startups, is find somebody who's doing what you want to do, and that they're excellent. Don't question. And I literally just started copying and pasting what he does, meaning I listened to him and just do it. I didn't question it. And so I started building my business using this. I was teaching 7 classes. I had several adjunct instructors at my school. And I was literally doing this in my office between breaks. And some nights I'd be up all night doing this, just doing Twitter. I picked up my first 2 clients. And I'd like to suggest is for anybody who's a startup and wondering, how do you get clients? Do it for free. This is exactly what 𝗗𝗵𝗏𝗄 recommends. And so I picked up 2 clients right away so I could learn the technology, because I did not come from a background in technology. And I'm not a young person, as you can see as well, too.
Oh, you're very young.
Oh, yeah.
Don't get me wrong, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
I appreciate that. I need you to talk to my son. With that said, so in the first month, we had 𝗗𝗏𝗏𝗏 from the Food Network come to my first client's place. And if you know 𝗗𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, he's a big name in at least the USA. He brought an additional.
Yeah, I've heard of the name. I think it's a bit of an international name, isn't it? And
the guy with the spiked hair, but believe it or not, when he walked in, he's actually even shorter than me. Really nice guy. With that said, that brought an additional $1 million of sales to that particular client. And all I did is I was running the Twitter account, just reaching out to his producers to get him there.
Wow.
Month we picked up an NBA player, and I said to myself, excuse my language, and so I said, holy shit, this is like local store marketing on steroids. And in the past, I was really good at driving sales when I ran restaurants. And even at the college, I tripled enrollment in a couple of years using the same tactics that we're growing our business today. I said, I need to make a business of this. So I spent the next 3 years full-time teaching, trying to understand the technology. How do you deal with clients, and et cetera, et cetera. So the next 5 or 6 years, I strictly focused on one market, and that was restaurants, because that was my background. And that's exactly what Gary said. Focus on what you're expert in. And we just really did well, spoke around the country. Fast forward, I met my business partner today. His name is 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝗏. Shout out to Paul, just a genius with technology, just incredible gentleman. Met him at a conference. He reached out to me. My website was down that day, and he told me they had hosting services, can provide security. I said, lo and behold, take care of it. Took care of it, but he actually made a mistake with it. And what I loved about Paul, and the reason we're business partners today, is because the next decision he made, he took responsibility for that. I had 8 years of people wanting to do SEO for me, websites, et cetera, but I wasn't interested with them because, as I shared with you just before the podcast, is I really believe there's 1 million people who can do SEO. There's 1 million people who can do Google Ads. Out of those million, there's 5% that are excellent at it. Paul's one of them. And out of that 5%, there's only 1% that have a level of values that I look for, meaning the standards like integrity, consistency, taking responsibility. And Paul showed that. And so we developed a relationship. In the last 1.5 years, 2 years, we decided to create a partnership. So between ourselves, we own 2 agencies, primarily focus on a couple of verticals, content developers. So those are folks that have like online education and provide classes online, for example. Then we're also in the hospitality space still, and then focus on white collar folks like lawyers and CPAs.
That's a great story, and you're the second teacher I'm speaking to this month, and I'll come to the first one, and I'll bring the teaching connection in there, because I mean there must be something in the way you are molded that allows you to be a full-time teacher and also a digital marketer, because this teacher is still teaching 7th grade maths, and he's got a full-time agency, and he's got a couple of part-time staff as well, so I mean, what is it that makes you teachers, I suppose, good entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm be direct. I don't know if it's particular to teachers. I can only speak for myself. What I can tell you is that I had dreams. And one of the dreams was a certain kind of lifestyle. In this world of social media at that time, we were just doing social media for the first 5 or 6 years with other agencies. It allowed me to have the freedom to really raise my child the way I wanted to. I wasn't on somebody else's schedule. That's what I foresaw. Plus opportunity. I've always loved to learn. Maybe this is a characteristic of teachers, possibly. I've always loved to learn. And so like I was on this kind of learning curve for the first 3 years. I didn't know anything about technology. It was a young man's game. Everybody I was competing against in the marketplace, from what I could tell, was 10, 12 years younger than myself as well too. But I also knew I had a couple of strengths. One was the ability to manage people and also manage customers. I come from the restaurant business. And one thing I noticed, and I still believe it exists today, Abul, and it's a strength of our company, is understanding the customer. What I see so many folks do, they have the strength of technology, but it's actually being able to build a relationship with the customer is very difficult for them. Strength of theirs. Number 2 is the ability to manage people. So what I kept on hearing from new clients is they were with somebody who was doing a great job for them previously, but as that digital marketer became bigger, when they got to actually 7 restaurants or 10 restaurants, it started falling apart. That was my strength, was actually scaling business. Okay, it's just gonna be a matter of time. We start systemizing our processes. I understand the business more. And so that's what evolved. So from a teacher perspective, really what drove me is, I think, and maybe something we all inherently have as teachers, is the willingness to learn. But I also had to drive just to get to the lifestyle that I really dreamed of fast. And I was so excited. It was an exciting time, 2009, 2010. People reached out to Gary Vaynerchuk. It was a no-brainer. It was amazing. I talked to his admin. We sold books at the second university I taught at. It was just awesome to be dealing with to me, I think of him like the Michael Jordan of the social media world back then. And I'd reach out to the food channel. It's just exciting.
Yeah, that's absolutely awesome. What you have achieved, and we'll come and dig to the $1 million results in a second. I think, just finally on that teacher point, I think you're missing on a lot of things that you might not see from an internal perspective, because teachers are leaders, whether you see it or not. You are community leaders, and you are well organized, you have a lot more empathy than most people, can build those relationships and get a deeper level understanding than I suppose most entrepreneurs, and I suppose patience, you know, a kind of seeing things through and being patient. If you have a naughty child or a naughty kid or someone who's not performing, you're not going to give up on the child, you know.
Right.
It's the same with your business, and I think some of these things do filter through, but then again, you've got your kind of internal spectacles on, so I mean, you're going to look at other reasons, but I think, you know, to be a good teacher, you need all of these skills that are needed as well to become a entrepreneur. Now, you touched upon a very, very important thing there. You said, you know, 1 million people can do SEO, Facebook ads, build you a website,
Yeah.
5%, you know, are really good, and then 1% amongst the 5% are really aligned to your values. Now, I suppose when someone is prospecting, how do they get across that their values are aligned with their prospects? And I suppose you can demonstrate competency through your portfolio, but how do you kind of get this alignment in values?
Yeah, so to be really direct, I think of an example. I met with a gentleman who worked with our U.S. Cycling team. And I met with him at a local market one night for dinner. And what he shared with me was this statement, that great people, meaning experts, can smell a dog, or I don't want to use bad language. And that's so true. I'm sure somebody like yourself who has experience, you can tell. And so how I've come, it's not about dressing up in a tie, a suit, and saying, hey, I've got these people, this, is starting with that. It starts right here, right? And then the next thing about positioning, it's exactly what you did with me on LinkedIn. Everybody, I promise, no matter what, I'm going to provide value to. And that's not a BS statement. No matter what, even if we don't decide to move forward, or we choose not to move forward with you, you're going to get some kind of tangible value that you can take steps with, no matter what. And then I always say this to them. I'm looking you in the eye right now. I'm the owner of the business. I'm telling you, this is what I would do if it was my money. And I'm always speaking 100% truth like that.
Yeah, I suppose when you're passionate about something, it does shine through, where, you know, if you are a well-trained snake oil salesman, some of the, you know, the traits can be sniffed out.
Yeah, and we still get burned sometimes by those folks, but it's more infrequent. It's like we got our radars up the next time, right? And but that, to me, that's the answer, is take care of yourself, your own integrity, right? And then you'll come across, people know. They just know. I mean, I just think about our last sale. We're on a streak of making we've had 8 prospects in the last 2.5 weeks. We've closed every one. And we didn't close on them with what we want to sell, but I really believe it is because of what we're stating and where it's coming from. It's coming from the heart. Every single time.
And in this period, are you meeting with people face to face or over Zoom, or, you know, how? Because obviously the impact you have with someone face to face in a room is very different to an impact on Zoom or over the phone. You know, how are you doing your prospecting right now?
Yeah. Great question. Yeah, so it's always over Zoom, no matter what, is what we make happen. And I ask for 10 minutes, by the way. Here's a tip to everybody out there, and we've put this as a process. Always ask for 10 minutes, because everybody can provide you 10 minutes, no matter what. And I tell them, no matter what, I'm going to provide you some value. I get the appointment 90% of the time with that.
That's a great
now,
tip.
when I meet them, same thing that we did right before the interview. I want to know about you. There's a great saying from, oh my gosh, Dale Carnegie, a famous book, How to Win
Win friends and influence people.
I apologize. I've been up since 4:30.
It's all good.
With that said, is one of his things, that if you want to be interesting, be interested. And so we always start there, is listen first. Listen first. So it's really that basic, but that comes from the restaurant business, but we also have to train our people. So it starts there. Then listen. And one of the tips I would give folks for closing more deals is ask this question. If you're a prospect of ours, Abul, what was the reason that you reached out to us? Because everybody's reason is going to be different. And then this is where we're going. And I'd be surprised. Please be direct with me if I'm wrong. The reason prospects are reaching out to you is for one reason. They'll say Google ads. They'll say Facebook ads. They'll say, hey, my website. But at the end of the day, what they really want is sales.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So then I always reframe it for that, so I can start controlling the conversation, because it might not be about Facebook ads. If it's about sales, this is the first step, and we walk them through. Then there's a couple characteristics that we deal with, just independent businesses. That's all we deal with. Some of them are big franchises like Best Western, but they're owned independently. With that said, is the next thing they're looking for is what's called peace of mind. That's language from our customer. And so we're talking about that. Is it peace of mind important to you? And of course, they're going to say yes. If that's not important, something's wrong, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We come back to sales. And so that's a little bit of the, I don't want to call it the game, but that's how it goes. And then there's a lot more to it after that with the prospects, but one-on-one. I'd suggest anybody who's really wants to become great at sales, there's a couple of books out there. If you're a young person and you haven't had opportunity to do a lot of sales even in person, it's the same thing online, meaning with Zoom, is look into what's referred to as neuro-linguistic programming. It really has to do with, it's the same thing. And so I see you shake your head. Yeah, exactly. I really believe in that. I don't think of it as manipulation. I think about it my ability to listen to this person and help them as much as I can.
Yeah, no, that's a great tip in terms of kind of getting to understand human psychology and human behavior. And what you mentioned, building rapport and having that 10 minutes. And we had about a 10-minute chat, which was impromptu, before the call. But you are, I mean, to be totally frank here, you're the first person who I've had a 10-minute pre-call chat with. I've spoken to people after the call just about business and whatnot, but you were genuinely interested in me and my background, my family's background, etc. And I did feel a connection there, and that connection is still there. No, absolutely. Before we even started recording the podcast, I was very comfortable in your presence.
Oh, thank you.
So this stuff actually does work.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you started off, obviously with the Twitter, if you like, you mentioned that you reached out to the Food Network and then you generated $1 million in sales. You get the very short story, right? I mean, how do you get, because the Food Network is huge, how do you get them to say yes to someone who has cold messaged them, someone who's just starting out, I suppose?
Yeah, so this is one of our sayings in our company, and we call it the motto of our company. What you do offline, you do online. Everybody thinks it's about the technology. It's not about the technology at all. It's about this. So it's always being sincere, always being honest. The same thing in sales. Come and present yourself the same way you're offline, present yourself online. So at that time, the Twitter universe was really small at the time. Like I said, I was regularly, you can go back if you do a search on a hospitality fan and Gary V's account, you'll see our dialogue comes up, our Twitter stream comes up of our conversation. It was really small back then, so it was no big deal. They said they were coming to Texas. That's where one of our first 2 clients was that I didn't charge any money to, and just reached out to them, say, hey, And we sent them some information, or I should say the owner sent some information, and behold, they came. They were looking for places, and this particular client is an Arabic ran restaurant and is really unique to Texas, and they were really popular in our community, and that's how it worked. It was nothing more than that. Nothing more.
Right, and then the whole business of generating sales, $1 million. Talk to us a bit about that campaign.
Yeah, well, there wasn't any more of a campaign than getting 𝗖𝗄𝗄𝗏 into the restaurant. It's called 𝗖𝗄𝗏𝗏, and then just them being on their channel. That's what generated the sales. Yeah, so it
was just the partnership, really.
Exactly.
Running any sorts of campaign.
Correct.
So that's a brilliant tactic, I suppose. And I suppose it sounds easy now, but you were obviously building that relationship. A lot of work and a lot of hours went into it for Gary Vee to turn around and trust you.
And understand, back then, I didn't even know what a campaign would be. I really didn't. I had no idea what I was doing. I was terrible.
Wow. Yeah, and
just being normal. Like I always say to people, what you do offline, you do online.
No, makes sense. No, absolutely, because I think when people are trying to sell online, because there's a lot more pitching going on online, they try to adopt this different persona than how they are at home, or around their friends. There is that incongruence, and often that shows through and the mask slips. So I think that's a great tip, that you need to kind of show up how you normally would as another human being who actually cares.
Yeah. You mentioned Gary Vaynerchuk, and so did I. And I assume most of your audience knows who he is. No less than a couple months after that, I spent 5 hours with him at South by Southwest. And if anybody wants to Google at Gary V, which is his account, and at Hospitality Fan, you'll see that he just said he's going down there. I asked him, hey, can I be your gopher at that particular event? He says, you need a badge. I said, is that the only thing holding me back basically from coming down and being your gopher? He said, yeah. I spent 5 hours this close to him like that.
Wow.
So it's all possible. But what
Yeah.
I only did exactly what you did for me on LinkedIn. I offered value. I did not ask him for anything else. It's the same thing with you. I reached back to you, say, hey, how can I help
Yeah.
out? You just
Yeah,
said, hey,
absolutely,
brand yourself.
absolutely. Yeah. So your agency right now, what kind of services, I suppose, are you providing for your clients?
Yeah, so you name the service other than running video, we're doing it. What's really unique about the services that we have to offer, at least what I hear from customers, number one, is integrated. Number two is we measure everything. So when we talk about SEO, it's more than just driving traffic. How many people clicked on the Google listing? Where was the Google listing? Where did they land on the page, on the website? How much time did they spend there? Did they go to the contact form and then not fill it out? On and on and on. So we measure everything. How many were qualified leads, et cetera, et cetera. So we do everything from SEO to Facebook campaigns, website redesigns, or new websites are new for us. I mean, are right in our core. We do hosting as well too. We do sales systems as well too, where we do we call them campaign sprints, like 90 days. Then SEO is a huge service of ours as well too. We've had a lot of fortune in that area. And we do a lot of strategy as well too. To me, that's really what makes us different. So even if you were to reach out to us about a website, just a new website as a startup, we talk about the strategy. But starting off building your foundation, the website first, and then we're going to
Right.
take for that.
Okay. And you mentioned earlier on that you're working with quite a few different brands. I mean, did you ever think about niching down and becoming a specialist, a celebrity for one industry? Or, how did you, I suppose, how do you decide who to work with?
Yeah, so initially it was just the restaurant business, as I shared with you, with the first agency. So I did that for about 5 years, and I was getting asked from jewelry stores, printers, but I never felt good. Going back to integrity, I never felt good enough that I could look you and I as a jewelry store, if you wanted our services, that we would actually exceed what you would perceive that we would do. So I never took those kind of clients on. Back in the day, like 2011 or 12, there's nobody who wasn't looking for somebody like us. But I really need to make sure that we follow through with everything. Something I learned from my grandfather is your reputation follows you everywhere. And I was being teased by people who are in our business, meaning competitors, saying, hey, you're moving too slowly. Yeah, we had opportunities, but going back to integrity, that's always been really important, tying in with what my grandfather talked about, reputation. But to answer your question, niching down. So we did that in the beginning. Then eventually we took on hotels, then we took on wineries, all in the hospitality space. Then I joined my partner about 3 years ago. He specialized in virtual summits, content providers, and then he took on the hospitality space with me. We're just dabbling with CPAs and like lawyers as well too. See what comes out of that. So, but really, what we've designed a model around for independent businesses, again, fully integrated. Number two, everything's measured. And number three is the software support. Our software stack, we do all the support for those, which is really unique in our business.
Right.
Does that answer your question?
It does. And because I mean, I've spoken to other people as well, because there's a lot of conflicting advice online for someone who's starting out. Because some would say, you know what, if you're starting out, go out and niche, become a specialist in that one area, and you will be taken more seriously, even if you don't have 20 years worth of experience. Whereas, others are like, well, when you're starting out, take any work that you can get your hands on. And, I suppose both approaches work. But, somebody reached out to me for advice today, and I told him, look, don't take my advice or anybody else's advice as gospel. We can guide you based on our experience, but it might not work for you. It doesn't work. The advice wasn't bad. I'm sharing my experience, What
Right.
you can take is great, but
Yes.
How we transact in one part of the world is not how people transact in another part of the world,
Right.
vice versa.
I love that. You should have been a teacher. I agree 100% with you. I would just lean more towards take any gig you can get, just so you get some experience too.
No, that makes sense. And I think, there's value in at least kind of honing in on your skill sets. Now,
Yes.
your agency right now, I mean, what does it look like? Because you're providing a lot of different services, and I'm sure you're not doing all of it.
Yeah, thank God. And I'm like the least tech savvy person on our team. No question about it. And I always have been in the business. So we have 25 people as of today. We've hired 8 people in the last 3 months. At the beginning of the year, we had 9 people, is where we were at. So we have a customer service team, then we have a whole crew of developers, and we have 4 or 5 writers on our team as well too. And several of those developers, of course, specialize in certain areas of the business as well too. We just got finished documenting all of our processes too, so because we're just scaling so fast, and that's something that my partner Paul has just done a wonderful job, because we don't foresee, and that's not our goal, to slow down at any time soon. So myself, I'm very focused on the sales piece with our business, meaning business development, and then also customer service, and I really am focused on the culture of our company as we're growing as well
Yeah,
too. And
I'm glad I'm really glad you touched on culture.
yeah.
With a team that size, you definitely need to bring culture into the mix. How do you create a culture where people want to show up to work and they're not looking for the next job on Indeed or something like that?
Great question. I believe it starts during the hiring process, how you treat people, whether they come with you or not, how you treat them, the kind of questions you ask, how you follow up with them. Do they follow up and show the right characteristics even before they're hired? Thank you, Mr. Traister. Hey, I hope I have the opportunity to do this with you. Then everybody is oriented one-on-one with me. I hope to do that as long as possible. By the way, that's something that the gentleman who runs, what's the name of the company that owns WordPress? I'm sorry.
WordPress is owned by
Mike, I forget his name, but you know who I'm referring to.
yes, yes.
He interviews every single person at WordPress. My goal is to orient it as long as I possibly can, without question, so that it's conveyed, because that just doesn't happen. I found that to be true in most businesses as well too. And during that time, we talk a lot about values. We talk about examples of those values, like what does integrity mean? It doesn't have to do just lying. It has to do with actually taking responsibility. And here's some examples so they understand, because many people talk about teamwork and customer service, but they need to have examples. And how do you get more work? Show integrity with the examples I gave you. This kind of customer service, take initiative like the examples I gave you as well too. So we talk a lot about that.
Yeah, no,
the last thing I'll share is we've never lost a person at our company, believe it or not, voluntarily leaving. We've let go of 2 people this year. I have people been with me as long as 9 years. The average from the other agency, the average tenure on that team's 5 years. On the new team, nobody's left with us this year. We've had to let go of 2 people, unfortunately, but nobody's left with us. So we feel we're doing something right. So from a culture standpoint, what I always have looked for is the same thing with clients is, are they bringing us new employees or team members? If they're doing that, we're doing something right. So that's the signal I'm looking for.
No, that's a great retention rate. I mean, that's an absolutely great retention rate, because if you're looking at, New York agencies or the flash agencies, you probably would see like a 30 to 40% turnover every year because of the culture. And one thing you mentioned, which has piqued my interest, and I'm sure it's piqued the interest of the people who are watching this, is 625% growth in a month. What makes that possible?
Yeah, number one is starting with the foundation, building a strong foundation. And Paul and my business partner, we're always talking about widening and strengthening that foundation so we can grow even more. So it starts with that. And I'm going to go on a tangent. It's the same thing.
Please go for it.
So when you're talking to a client, if they come to us asking us for Facebook ads or Google ads, the first thing is we look at their website. The foundation of your online presence is a website. We can run Facebook ads and take your money all day long, but if your website's not running fast enough, as you know, and I think it was 𝗖𝗃𝗏𝗏 mentioned on his podcast with you, which was just wonderful, is that, for example, every second that's the load speed is slowed down with your website. Like if it goes to 3 seconds instead of 2 seconds, you lose 7% of the conversions. So you have to have the foundation in place. So the first thing is the website. Then the question is, hey, are you really selling product offline? Because what you do offline, you do online. And how compelling is your messaging? But going back to getting 625%, some of the waking up at 4:30 in the morning is hitting me now. So with that said, is building the foundation first. Understanding our customer, understanding our products and services, are they of value to the customer, right? And then finding the right people. There's no way I have time to do this if I don't have the right people.
Yeah.
Right? And they're trained right and developed right. And like I've said to Paul is we want people to be better than us. So like everybody on the team is much more tech savvy than I am. I'm better at doing sales though. I'm better at hiring people, right? So that's my spot, right? So we've also documented all of our processes so we can be consistent with our deliveries without question. And the last thing I'll share with you, and a lot of the credit goes to Paul as well too, no question about it, is the caring for the customers and caring for our team members, because the amount that we care for our team members is conveyed to our customers. We have a whole customer service team as well too. But I like to share with that, and I think this is important for people to hear. To me, it's a differentiator. One of the things I was so happy to learn when I started that first agency is I looked at my competitors. They wanted to be contacted online through emails. They didn't even have a phone number. If you ever look at the Hospitality Fan website, it's a junk website, but it's the same one that I had 8 or 9 years ago. But what was unique about it is I had my phone number on there. I found that so many people in our space don't want to talk to people. We want to talk to people. Right? So it's always personal, shown caring. We have a couple clients gave us some referrals. I bought their, one gentleman, his name's Henry. I bought his favorite bottle of wine. Somebody else, I treated their whole crew to pizza. It just goes on and on. I listened to Kimberly. We had a call with one of our clients earlier about her vacation, about her kid. I know the name, et cetera, et cetera. It's everything your dad did in the restaurant business that you're talking
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's exactly what you need to do. You know, you kind of know the people that you're serving. So the clients that you are picking up, how long do they usually stick around with you?
Gosh, right now, 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
A great majority of them. The client, you know, at 625%, we brought on probably about 25 new clients in the last 3-4 months. So I can't speak to those clients, but I intend for them to all be here. And that's, you know, we always talk when we're talking to our team members, bringing them on an orientation, as well as to clients, is we want you to be with us forever. It's like a marriage. And in a marriage, we also talk about an orientation. It's a partnership. And we're not going to be a puppet of a client either. And I don't want our team members after the first 3 months are with us to be a puppet. You tell me what you need from me after 3 months, after you prove yourself. It's the same thing with a client. After 3 months, I'm going to start giving you feedback if you haven't listened initially. We start the partnership right from the beginning. And I would be talking to you like this if you're a new client. I'm going to talk to you now directly as if this is my money, Abul. I don't want to wait 6 months and you're disappointed. So I'm going to talk to you now. And they always love that, right?
Yeah, well, you become their trusted advisor, I suppose, rather than an agency client relationship, you know. And we are, I mean, we have gone on for a while here now. In respect of your time, you know, one final question for you. I mean, people who are watching this and they are just getting started, you've learned, I'm sure, quite a few lessons over the last decade or so. What wisdom can you impart on them?
Number one is when I think about our most successful clients and another career I was in, number one is characteristics is they're humble. No question about it. Number two is always learning. I was talking to Paul, my business partner, the other day. As great as a month that we had, a 625% growth, we're just beginning. One of the other gentlemen on one of your podcasts said, I think, it was Oliver Kenyon. We still think about ourselves as a startup. It's like every month. It's exciting, but it's like, man, we're just beginning. We're still on the learning curve, even with this success from a financial standpoint. So being humble, always learning, take care of your people, your team members. That's huge. They come first before clients. They come first before clients.
Awesome. I think that's a lot of value for someone to take away. And even before that, kind of, you have shared so many golden nuggets without probably even realizing all of the key takeaways, you know. I mean, on that note, Jim Traister, thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it and wish the best of luck. If anybody wants to reach out for any insight, additionally, just feel free to reach out to help@thedigitalnavigator.com. Ask for Jim. Tell them that you're coming from Abul's podcast, and we'll definitely make some time. Take care now.
Awesome. Or I will be tagging you on LinkedIn. This is going to be going on Facebook. I'm going to be putting it out everywhere that I can. So I'm sure they'll come and find you on LinkedIn.
Wonderful. Appreciate you. Take care now.